are no consent and action items this evening. We'll move along to item number 9, which is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If anyone has joined us either online via Zoom or here in City Council chambers, and you'd like to address us concerning a matter that's not on the agenda, now would be the appropriate time. Welcome.
Good evening. Scott McWilliam, 61 Pearl Street. I just arrived, so I have to look over the agenda fully, but I just wanted to follow up on the comments in regard to the enforcement, if you will, or signage at the city beaches regarding no cooking and no hookah and so on. First of all, the Parks and Rec folks do a great job keeping our parks safe and clean, considering the challenges that they face all the time. But, I know there's concerns about some of the signs being interpreted as not being very welcoming. I don't know. I don't have a solution. Maybe the signs could be amended to say, just a reminder, there's no smoking, or be considerate with your music. I mean, what's loud is certainly subjective. The signs don't say no music. They say no loud music, but certainly that's subjective. But, some folks need a friendly reminder, and I don't know how you make the rules clear without, sending the wrong message. Perhaps, like I said, an amendment to the signs could be considered to just say, hey, it's just a friendly reminder. A recent letter writer to the Laconia Daily Sun suggested that the bigger problem is trash. And, I think, if adequate receptacles are available, that people will take advantage of them and utilize them. I mean, I'm ever the optimist and feel that that would be the case. Certainly there's always those who are not as considerate, but I know that there's been many times where the trash receptacles have been overflowing to the point where they're really not, you can't really utilize them because they're so full. So perhaps additional receptacles could be considered by the council or the Parks and Rec department. Also, in regard to no cooking, I know a lot of picnic area. I know the beaches aren't really picnic areas, but I know some parks have sort of like permanent grills installed. They're on a single pole, and folks grill on them, and their coals just kind of burn out in place and sort of just turn into ash and dust, and that avoids people dumping hot ashes on the beach and in the surrounding area. And I know there's a limited amount of green space in some of the beaches, but sometimes they put a grill like right next to each picnic table. I know it probably won't satisfy or solve the problem completely, but just something to consider.
Thank you very much, Mr. McWilliam. Scott, when is the next
week?
Is it next week? Park and Rec?
Yep.
They have their own meetings.
Yes,
I take it. Yeah, they're like at noon or.
No, 7 p.m.
Oh, 7 p.m.
The
Okay.
Community Center.
Next week.
Yep.
I'll look it up, and perhaps I should attend that and bring that up with
Terrific.
With those folks. Thank you.
Any other citizen comments for items not on this evening's agenda? No, looking at Mr. Smith. That's okay, Mr. Mayhew. Anybody online raising their hand interested in speaking? Okay, terrific. Thanks. So moving along to item number 10, which is interviews this evening. First interview is for Deborah Williams, seeking reappointment to a regular member position on the Conservation Commission for a 3-year term expiring at the end of August 2024. So welcome.
Thank you.
You might want to pull the microphone down, and if you'd like to reintroduce yourself and to the council, and let us know why you're putting in for reappointment.
Deb Williams, I'm Ward 4. I served on the Conservation Commission probably 11 years, I think, maybe 12. I can't remember. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's a great group of people. I really feel the need to help educate our citizens on different environmental processes and issues that we have. We're the city on the lakes. That's my main interest, is keeping our waters clean. And we're sharing them a lot these days. More and more people are coming up to boat and recreate. So it's more important than ever that we have signage, have people around to let them know what is acceptable for our lakes. We need to keep them clean. Water is probably the most expensive commodity throughout the world. And we're very, very lucky to live in this area. I don't think I'd want to go anywhere else. So,
Well, we're glad to have you here in the city of Laconia. Thank you for your previous service, and thanks for your willingness to step up and continue to serve. I'm particularly, what jumped out on your application here is your passion is clean water. And certainly if there's a community that's, I don't think there's another community out there that's more dependent on clean water than we are, certainly, and not only for our drinking water, but also for our economy as well. So thank you. Are there any questions or any feedback for Ms. Williams? Seeing none? Thanks for joining us.
thanks. I did bring brochures because I also work as a lake host in the summertime at the boat ramp, the fishing game ramp on Winnisquam. It's the only public ramp on Winnisquam. So it's really important. This year, we're actually staffing it 7 days a week.
Oh, terrific.
So this is the kind of thing we give out to boaters, and I can pass them along. If you're not interested, you can leave them downstairs.
Terrific. Thanks very much. And the interviews are this evening, and appointments will be made a following meeting, which is July 26th.
Right.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Next interview up is Roland Mayhew seeking reappointment to a regular member position on the Zoning Board of Adjustment for a 3-year term expiring at the end of August 2024. Welcome, Mr. Mayhew. If you'd introduce yourself for the record and let us know why you're
Thank you very much for having me
seeking
here tonight.
reappointment.
I want to thank you for appointing me to the board 5 years ago. It's been an interesting 5 years and sometimes very exciting 5 years. And I've met some really nice people on the board. I'm asking for a reappointment tonight. I feel the 5 years I've been on the board has been very valuable to me in doing a better job. And so I'd like to continue with that. And if you have any questions of me, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. Would this be your third term on
My term on
the
the board,
zoning board of ZBA?
September 2015 to September of 2000.
And did you, I thought I saw something on your application. This will be my third appointment to the zoning board. I served from 93 to 95. So but you had served in the 90s as well.
Yes, I did.
Oh,
Yeah,
terrific.
Before I was elected as city council, I was on the zoning board.
Very good. Congratulations on your retirement as well.
Well, thank you very much. I sold the business.
Okay. Thank you. Anyway, thank you for your willingness to continue to serve. And if there are any questions or feedback for Mr. Mayhew from city council members.
Just thank you, Roland.
Yeah, thank you, Roland.
Thanks very much. And as I told Ms. Williams, the interviews tonight, appointments at the July 26th meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving along to item number 13, which is our public hearings. Public hearing for resolution 2021-15 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $162,764 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Boating Infrastructure Grant Funding for Laconia Municipal Docks. Notice of this hearing was made available on June 30th, 2021 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun and posted at the Laconia City Hall, Laconia Public Library, Community Center, and the SAU. Action on this item may be taken up under tonight's unfinished business. So I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:13 PM. And anyone either online or in person who'd like to address the council on this matter, now would be the appropriate time.
Mr. Mayor, no online attendees have raised any.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:14 PM. Moving on to item number 15, my remarks will be very brief tonight. As many of you know, Nancy Brown, our administrative secretary in the city manager's office, was recently injured at home with fall. And I just wanted to send along to Nancy mine, and I'm sure all of our best wishes for a speedy recovery. And look forward to seeing her again sometime soon. And just wanted to let her know that we're thinking of her. So that would conclude my mayor's report. Looking at counselors here this evening, are there any counselor comments tonight? Counselor Cheney.
Mr. Mayor, I was hoping I could ask Henry, but Councilman Lippman, it's my understanding he served on a committee that met a couple of years ago, and the discussion at the time was particularly, as I think at the time, related to the state school property, but also the western portion of the city, northwestern portion of the city, which I think I alluded to 2 weeks ago. Point of that is I was led to believe that that committee had asked for a report, and I was hoping I could ask if we could see a copy of that report from Dean whenever it's available.
Was that a city council
There were,
committee?
yes.
Okay. All right. No, it doesn't ring a bell with me. But
It's not clicking, but I'm not saying it didn't happen.
I understand Henry. I'm not sure who the third person was, but I believe also Mayor Engler was involved.
Oh, you're talking about the master plan steering committee?
If it was a 3-member committee, yes. If it wasn't, I'm looking for the report.
And the report dealing with infrastructure and build out and from the state school property north?
North.
Okay.
Right.
I think it might have been the steering committee, but let me make a note of that and we can find that for you.
That'd be great. The other thing I'd like to ask about is if we could get, I know we've had some reports with regards to Airbnb and contracting with a company to keep track of that or whatever, but I'd like to know what we've done, you know, what we've generated for rules, et cetera, and a report on the impact that's had and what we're doing to enforce it, et cetera. Just, I'd like an overview of Airbnb now that we've started requiring people to sign up, et cetera.
to monitor and regulate the Airbnbs and VRBOs, yes. I think we touched on it just recently with Dean when Dean was here, but certainly maybe we can bring him back for the next meeting at the end of the month for.
We did touch on it, Mayor, and I thank you. I just would like a little more detail.
Okay,
We can get that for you. I'm probably thinking maybe the first meeting in August might be better because we've got the budget and a couple of other resolutions
Sure.
coming up on the 28th.
I'm not in any, hurry to get this. I just would like all of us to see it at some point.
great. Why don't we put it on the calendar for the first meeting of August?
Sounds fine.
And be sure if we can all get copies ahead of time, of course, so we can review them. That'd be great, of
Thank you.
course.
Mayor?
Oh, Counselor Hamel.
Yes, thank you. I just want to speak a little bit about the 4th of July ceremony we had. And I think with everything that went on, it went very well. And thanks to Tony for setting up the parade and doing a great job with that. At the finish line, it started to rain, so. but,
Just right.
Just right. And also for Amy and Parks and Recs Department, they did a great job at O-Pee-Chee Park with the vendors and everything. And even with the rain we had, there was quite a few people that were there. It was amazing. It was a very, very good turnout. And the fireworks were fantastic. They were really good this year. So maybe that was because we didn't see so many of them last year, but we did have it though. But everybody just did a great job for the 4th of July, and hope the people appreciated it. So thank you.
That's a good reminder. Yeah. Thank you, Counselor Felch. It was, I know you were pulling it together on short order and, but it was great. The attendance was great. It was nice to come down the streets and see people out, you know, anticipating that we were coming around the corner. It's, I think people look forward to it. So a job well done.
It was. I was glad to do it.
Okay. Just I didn't know if we'd missed something. Cheryl, you're looking at me. Okay. Terrific. All right. Moving right along. Are there any committee reports? How about liaison reports? Do we have any liaison reports this evening? Seeing none, we're on to item number 19, which is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. Now would be the appropriate time if anyone is either online or in the audience and there's an item on the current agenda they'd like to speak to. Now would be the appropriate time. Hi, Tara.
Hey, how are you?
Well, how are you?
I'm good. I know that the mill is on for a TTO tonight. And am I able to ask questions at that moment or now? What's the best time?
Any preference?
I think generally the questions come now. Otherwise, you maybe can turn every agenda item into a free fall if you're opening it up for questions later on. Not saying Mr. Shore would take advantage of that.
Hmm,
Now would be the appropriate time.
Okay. Very cool.
Just so you know, we all want to be out by 10, so.
Ish.
I'm going to give that a shot for you guys. The only question I have, or the only comment I have, is that we had asked for the small lot and the parking along the beacon, along the park, and that the timeframes. I think if it's possible, I'd like to give up the parking lot, and if I'd be able to park cars on the brick in front of the buildings. And the reasoning is this. This particular event, the Sock Hop, for the Sock Hop and Pumpkin Fest, and I can get into Pumpkin Fest in a minute, not Pumpkin Fest, the Duck Derby. But for the Sock Hop, it's really becoming its own event. It's really becoming quite an event. And one large thing that we see coming up and growing is the vintage cars. Last year, we scheduled 12 to be with us. And they just have a connection, I guess, amongst themselves, and they just kept showing up. And they were really excited to be here with us. So we decided this year that maybe that's a place where we could grow a little bit. People really enjoyed seeing them. People enjoyed taking pictures with them. And so that's the reasoning for the extension of parking that we're requesting, because this has just kind of grown outside of itself, which is amazing, wonderful to bring the community out to share what they've got, as well as to, you know, people to enjoy what's out there. In regards to, and so I'd be happy to kind of give up the small parking lot here if I'm able to park along the brick. And the reasoning is because they show up, the show starts at 6, the music starts at 6, but we have people showing up with their chairs at 5. Awesome. And Winnie Wagon is with us, and they'll be arriving around 4-ish and ready to serve at 5. So it's really becoming kind of a larger event outside of the 6 to 8 timeframe when we normally have our concert. So just going to share that with you to talk it over. And then for the Duck Derby, and I apologize, I was trying to look up, remind myself that what the new language was on the TTO, but this particular, one of the things that's growing outside of our Duck Derby is that we do an event called Community Fest, and we invite nonprofits and organizations here in the community to share what they are and who they are. And up until a few years ago, I wasn't really clear what Altrusa was. And that's kind of what kicked off Community Fest, to have them come out and teach us, share with the community who they are. And that we are hoping to extend a little bit as well. And that's what this parking lot would be used for, Community Fest. So we'd like to be able to give them space to have a tent and possibly share an activity based on ducks or pumpkins. So just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what all that parking would be for so that you'd understand what we're looking at.
Thank you, Tara.
You're welcome.
Scott, do you have that all down as to, and
I've got it.
the edits we need to make on these items? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why does she necessarily have to give up the parking that we've already assigned to her?
I don't think we've assigned it yet, so I think she's looking to amend it a little bit, but we can certainly address any and all of it when that item comes up on the agenda.
Yeah, I just, if it grows the way
Yeah.
she thinks it's growing, and I have no reason to question that,
I
she ought to have both.
I would agree with that. Go ahead and give it to her. If she doesn't need to use it, then
Yeah.
that's fine.
It's on a Friday night.
We can do that when we get to it.
Yep.
I apologize.
Tara, would you like to come up and say something again? I don't understand what your sign language. I'm sorry.
It was really the time framing of the change in, so I think you probably understood that, but the timing that was changed from the original request to, but I'm happy to, maybe change a little bit one way or the other, but that was what it was based on. Counselor Cheney was the time change and getting people in and out of here.
But just, again, it occurs to me that extra space won't be a negative for you.
Right. And it's just the time frame of when we can have that extra space. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Any requests for comments on current agenda items from our virtual viewers?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, terrific. Moving right along to item number 20, which is the city manager's report. Turn that over to Scott Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you have the financial and operational trends report in your packet for tonight. Starting at the top of the page is the update on building permit values, and again, tied to the assessing year beginning April 1st. So we, in terms of dollars of building permit value, are knocking it out of the park this assessing year. We're at 17.4 million in value. A year ago at this time, we were at about 6 million in value. So things are continuing to be happening in both big projects, small projects, large, small, additions of sunrooms, converting basements. It runs the gamut. It's amazing the number of electrical permits that are being pulled as well that maybe don't even reflect in the building permit report because, if you upgrade your electric, it's not really changing your assessed value, so to speak. But, people either upgrading service or tied into some of their expansions or doing solar arrays, panels on the roof and whatever, and putting those applications. So it's a very busy time in the city inspections. The fire and rescue call, you can see the June number up almost 100 calls for emergencies June of this year versus June of last year. So you ask what changed. Obviously, COVID is abated a great deal at this point, and also we held Motorcycle Week in June this year, where last year there was no Motorcycle Week. So if you look at the numbers going back to 2018, you can see June of 21 was spot on in terms of number of calls. So people are here, and except for a little bit of rain on some of these last weekends, it's been a busy kickoff to the season. Under our public assistance data and welfare, you do see a little bit of a spike there. We're actually going to be reimbursed the lion's share of that amount through one of our CDBG COVID grants. So there is a reimbursement coming in as some of those expenses that occurred in June were COVID related. You can see the PD numbers. And again, calls for service, very strong, up of 600 calls over the same month last year. And again, probably some of that attributed to a Motorcycle Week. You can see the number of motor vehicle stops. Again, not quite doubling, but close to it. And again, kind of getting back to more of a normal routine in life, and some of those routine traffic stops are occurring. Going down toward the bottom of the page, you can see property tax collection. We're at just about 85%. The tax due date this year was July 1.
Mm-hmm.
So you had those folks who do come in last minute. And so I'm sure when we true up that number for you a month from now, we should be well into the 90s. We don't see any preliminary issues of being short on property tax collection. Motor vehicle registration, this rounds out the fiscal year. The number may, tweak a little bit as we finalize the numbers. But you can see that total motor vehicle revenue was 3.4 million, which is about 175,000 more than the prior fiscal year. One item of note, and I did the math, and I forgot what the answer is, but I'll tell you what I did. If you look at the municipal transportation revenue number, that's that flat $5 fee per vehicle. So if you see that last year we took in $98,355 and divided it by the 5 per vehicle, that told you how many vehicles were registered within the city. This year being 102,000, we're, you know, $4,600 greater. You know, so do the math, divided by 5, and we have, you know, several hundred more cars. What's
It's 20,594.
20,000? Okay, so we're up.
Well, that's what was this year. I didn't do the difference between the
Okay,
two.
so either way, we're up. So not only are we up in the volume, we're up in terms of dollar amount, we're also increased the number of vehicles that are registering here in Laconia. So very interesting. The overtime report, again, as I've mentioned all the way along, there were certain pockets of money that'll be reimbursable over police, fire, EMS, that Glenn is doing a great job tracking. So just because overtime is showing up here at numbers greater than they were a year ago, obviously, number one, there's reasons for it over the past 12 months, but number two, there's reimbursements. You turn to page 4 of the report. Again, you can see the good trend of our facility request for use at Parks and Recreation. You know, the months of April, May, June, very strong, especially when you compare to those same months a year ago. So again, things are getting back toward normal and activity is happening. We touched upon at the last meeting. We do have one grievance that we're scheduled to be before a hearings officer or an arbitrator early in August. I will update you there. If we go to page 5 of the report, again, you'll see the current balances as they sit in the various accounts. Some of those dollars are encumbered for certain projects that are out to bid or in the midst and haven't been paid. So those are the balances as they stand today. But again, some of those dollars are already encumbered. Boat taxes, again, you can see the strength in that boat number. We budgeted $100,000 for the fiscal year. We're in the midst of closing out right now, and we came in almost 120,000. So again, as we've heard earlier tonight, our areas for recreating on the water in particular, and there are a lot of boats going out there. So ambulance numbers at the bottom, again, if you look at the number of calls we responded to this year versus the same period a year ago, again, tie it back to COVID. So we are starting to trend back to a more normal volume of calls through our ambulance, and I expect that to be busy as well this summer. 2 other items not included in the report, but you do have some not quite finalized, but pretty good motorcycle week revenue and expense numbers on a sheet that was on your desk as you came in this evening. So when you run through the revenue, our major revenue components are the boardwalk rental, the photo tower, site review, which is through planning and land use for approvals for various sites. The big one is typically our permits and licenses for vendor licenses. And then the trademark revenue is what we collect for the various trademark names and clothing and pins in the various categories we have. And that's really a pass through. If we don't have any expenses in any given year for either re-registering or enforcing our trademark or doing any research or anything, then that number in its entirety will eventually be transferred over to the Motorcycle Week Association. So you see it as a revenue up top, but you also see it at the very bottom as an expense as well. So it's a wash for that number coming in. So if you backed out the trademark revenue as a wash, the city had a little under $100,000 in revenue this year for Motorcycle Week. So we were down in the number of sites being reviewed and the applications coming in and those payments. And we were also down somewhere between 30 and 40 vendors. Again, we think this is COVID related. You know, we think some of the changes and the growing into the event, if you will, as data trends and health trends improved, you know, some people probably made the decision not to come for whatever reason, or some, you know, maybe by the time it was going to be a full open event, said it was too late for them for whatever reason. But we were down about 30 to 40, between 30 and 40 vendors this year. So that is the drop in revenue. When you go to true out the numbers in any information that Glenn puts forward, it's not going to quite match up this year. And the simple reason is last year we collected some money in which would have been fiscal year 20. And when we didn't have motorcycle week, some of that money got refunded in 21. So rather than show you a negative number here because it was returned, it just made sense to true it out and just for informational purposes, this is cleaner. But when Glenn is carrying the books, some people paid their money and just said, well, leave it on an account for me till next year and I don't need a refund, just carry it forward. So it's a little messy with what Glenn's doing, but this is a simple way to look at it. So on the expense side, you can see the breakdown there between our police department, out of town police, fire, public works. Public works was a little bit higher this year than in most years. And I think that's mostly attributable to the fact that we went to center lane parking on the Saturday morning as opposed to the Monday morning. So all of that time was overtime to get the crews in to do that switch over on a Saturday. Whereas in most years it occurs on a Monday and the crew would begin at work at 7 or 7:30 anyway. And most of those hours they're working is already built into their regular salary. So that's the reason that DPW labor was up a little bit. Police labor was up a little bit. Fire labor was basically on par where it is in a normal year. We've still got a couple of outstanding invoices that we've estimated. One you can see there is trash collection. The big kicker on the expenses for us this year, as has been mentioned already in the past, was the cost of the porta potties. Usually it's about a $5,000 line item, and this year it's $25,000. So if you look at our expenses of $175,000, again, if you back out that trademark money, it brings us down to about $163,000. If you back out a $20,000 overage, if you will, or increase in the cost of the porta potties, that puts us in the mid 140s. That's about where we usually are if you go back and compare this to prior year motorcycle week. So that's it, subject to finalizing and truing everything up. But that's how motorcycle week ran. So part of what I did during staff meeting with all department heads last week was just ask everybody to kind of put together a couple of glorified bullet points if they're in an office or a division that does have a fee associated with motorcycle week, and what it is, what the fee currently is, what that encompasses, when the last time we may have adjusted that, just so we can start to take a look at it and maybe take some action this fall in anticipation of maybe making some adjustments. Maybe it's increasing our rental spaces on the boardwalk, which is specific to 15 or 18 sites. Maybe it's an increase in the vendor licenses, which would impact 160, 170 vendors or anything like that. So we'll take a look at it as a staff, put together some information and make a recommendation to the council, and probably be looking for you to take some action on that this fall in advance of setting out materials right after the first of the year and getting into another one. So I'll stop there on that and take any questions there before I go on to my final item.
Any questions? Seeing none, go right ahead.
Okay, and the last item tonight is a bittersweet item. So our city treasurer, Sue Batstone, has given us her notice to retire from that position earlier this spring. So we appreciate everything Sue has done for us for over 12 years now, and done a great job with it. We've got longevity in treasurers. Our prior treasurer was in the position for 43 years. And when I kind of researched how long Sue was here, she made a quote, well, I'm not going to guarantee you that I give you 43 years. And so the trivia question, who knows our 43-year treasurer?
That's not here no more, correct?
What's that?
That's not here no more.
No,
Yeah,
hasn't
right.
been here for
Not
20
here.
years.
Not here. Bob
Holbrook.
Holbrook
Yes.
was 43 years in treasurer. So there's some good genes in our treasurer history. So I'm pleased to announce the appointment of Jeffrey Graham to be our new treasurer on or about August 1st, as we finalize the date to transition from Sue to Jeff. Glenn has actually known Jeff for quite a while. They both had worked in Vermont, and Glenn has served on some committees there with him. And Jeff has been a Laconia resident for about a dozen years right now. He's the president of Graham and Veroff CPA and business advisors and management consultants over on Court Street. So in addition to being a certified public accountant, he's certified in financial forensics and a certified specialist in estate planning. So he certainly brings a great skill set to the table in the position. And on a volunteer basis, through recommendation of the governor and approval through the executive council, he currently serves as the vice chairman of the New Hampshire Board of Accountancy, and has been on that position for about 2.5 years at this point. So very excited to have someone as qualified as Jeff step up and look to contribute to the city in this way. So that's concludes my report for this evening.
Scott, well done.
Thank you, Scott. Moving along to item number 21, which is our new business. Couple of items here we've already been briefed on by Ms. Shore. So let's roll right along then. Item 21A, temporary traffic order 2021-08, Belknap for the Belknap Mill Society Riverside Duck Derby, October 16th, 2021. This is their request to reserve parking and to waive fees associated with the event. Correct me if does this discussion portion and the facts reflect?
I think the full 18 spaces along Rotary Park and then the small parking lot out here exactly was what the mill was looking for. This one being on a Saturday, the businesses aren't open, the parking lots aren't full. You're not trying to do something midday to clear out, this lot. So city has no problems and fully encourages this full presentation as is presented.
Terrific. So right now I'd be looking for a move to approve the temporary traffic order 2021-08.
So moved.
Second. I get the impression you guys are in a hurry.
We've got the under tonight.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
That's 1, 2, that's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Moving along to 21B, temporary traffic order 2021-09 for the sock hop in Rotary Park. This is Belknap Mills' request to reserve parking in connection with the sock hop on September 10th, 2021, and to waive fees associated with the event. So we have amended this as well to allow for parking on the brick walkway.
We certainly can do that. And I administratively worked with Nancy to amend this from what the original request was. And the thinking was the original request, if you look at the map on the last page of the packet, was for all of those reversed angled spaces to be reserved starting at 6 a.m. on that day. And that's a Friday. So that's a work day and there's people in at the gym and it's a busy time. And we thought losing all of that parking along the street there at that point, starting at 6, was a lot over a work day.
Mhm.
So the amended of what we've done administratively is to down at the very bottom of the map, the little hashtag area, and then the first 6 spaces that are adjacent to the Rotary, that'd be a place that would be reserved all day. Truck could get in there to offload band equipment if the radio station vehicle needed to get in there, if the food truck needed to get in there or whatever, they've got that space to work and rotate in and out of, and that seemed to be reasonable. And then the remainder of the spaces we would post signs earlier in the day, but to say no parking after 3 o'clock, so that as the vehicles started to, come in to be staged for the sock hop or whatever, that, you're thinking about either the people who are working would know that they've got to be out of there at 3, or maybe it's turnover spaces at the gym. There should be no reason why we can't kind of free those up there. The other lot was requested, I forget the original time they wanted, but it was noontime, 1 o'clock. It was, okay, it was definitely, but it was in the middle of the workday. So all of a sudden, how do we go tell people you're working in the One Mill Plaza, you're in City Hall parking lot, but now you can't be there anymore because we've changed it. So the purpose of it, as we read it, was it's just staging cars. So we thought basically at 4:30, that lot empties out. Cars could certainly start rolling in at 4:30. And my suggestion was, even though Tara says they don't want it, to still make that no parking after that 4:30 timeframe and give them the lot. And if you're comfortable having them, bring cars up on the brickway in the front, certainly we have no objections to that because that's not impacting normal parking. So if you wanted to amend the temporary traffic order to also include parking on the bricks in front of the Belknap Mill, that would be fine. So that was the logic for us kind of tweaking it on a Friday versus not having any concerns. if
So
it
we'd
was
be
on
looking for a
Saturday.
motion right now to approve temporary traffic order 2021-09 as amended. So made Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Thank you. Moving right along to 21C, Lakes Region Rotary Club, request to waive fees associated with the 8th Annual Charity Car Show, which takes place on July 24th, 2021. At the former Pharaoh's Italian Grill property on Endicott Street North in the Weirs. Lakes Region Rotary Club, as you know, is a 501c3 that will be awarding approximately $12,000 from the proceeds of this event. So right now I'd be looking for a motion to approve the request by the Lakes Region Rotary Club to waive the city fees associated with their car show. So made by Counselor Cheney and seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by raising your hand. That's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Thank you. Item number 21D, request to declare city-owned property on Woodland Avenue as surplus. The city has received a request to purchase city-owned property located between number 59 and 73 Woodland Avenue, identified as tax map parcel 408-247-18, in accordance with Chapter 183 of the Laconia City Ordinance, Article 2, which is attached. The property must first be declared as surplus in order to transfer the property to an interested buyer. City manager has recommended that the city council schedule a public hearing for July 26, 2021 to declare the property as surplus. We're looking for a motion to move to schedule that public hearing on July 26, 2021. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Under unfinished business, this will be the second reading of Resolution 2021-15 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $162,764 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Boating Infrastructure Grant funding for Laconia Municipal Docks. This is 3 motions. One would be to waive the reading of the resolution in its entirety and to read by title only. That was touch and go there. Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 4 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Second is motion we'll be looking for is a second reading of 2021-15 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend and sign all documents for a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $162,764 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Boating Infrastructure Grant funding for Laconia Municipal Docks. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 4 votes in the affirmative. The motion passes. And finally on this, we'll be looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-15 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept, expend, and sign any and all documents for a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $162,764 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Boating Infrastructure Grant funding for Laconia Municipal Docks. So made by Counselor Phelps, seconded by Counselor Hamel. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by raising your hand. That's 4 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. I do believe that that concludes our agenda for this evening. If you had the under, you lost, okay? If you had the over, you are now a winner. I'd like to declare